What's up, queens? Welcome to the Female Dating Strategy Podcast, the meanest female-only podcast on the internet. I'm Ro.
I'm Savannah.
And I'm Lilith.
So today's another Patreon grab bag episode, Scrotation edition.
Is this a Scrote Strike Back episode?
All scrotes all the time. We put them in the back of the line because, quite frankly, they can wait.
Yeah, like we respond to feedback from women with greater urgency than feedback to men. We're like, a guy will complain to us and we're like, yeah, we can wait like 6 months before we have to respond to this.
Yeah, exactly. So, if you've been waiting a while for us to answer your question.
6 months turnaround.
Some of these are questions that we got in our Scrote Strike Back here like 6 months ago. I'm not going to apologize for how long it took to us.
Hey, it's 5.
Yeah.
Maybe like 5.
5 months.
But we're here now.
And if they have a problem, we don't care.
Yeah. So first up is a question from Weish. When it comes to deepening the relationship, what it says is, whose job is it to ask if the other person, if they are ready for more? For all manner of physical and emotional things, from can I hold your hand to can we talk about being exclusive? Is it fine for either person to ask? From the handbook FAQ, it seems like you're expecting the male to ask, but I don't know if that's male impatience or a female dating strategy to wait for them. In my relationships, I've been inclined to try and figure out if it's time for me to ask, but several women have said things like, you should call me on all days we don't meet up. In this case, I had been moving too slowly, or let's talk about getting engaged. My opinion is that she asked this a little quickly since we'd only been dating about 5 months. So let's answer the first part of the question before we get to the second part of the question. There's a second part of the question here.
I think if you're in a relationship and the woman wants to get married faster than the man wants to get married, I don't think that's a relationship that works. Like, I think the man should know from a very early time that he wants to marry the woman. When I meet like older couples that are like happily married, most of the time, you never hear like, oh, she bullied me into marrying her, right? It's always like, I knew from the first moment that she was going to be my wife someday, and I just had to prove myself to her and blah, blah, blah. Like the man knows from a very early time that she's his soulmate and he works for that. Whereas if she has to force him to marry you, like if she has to force the man to marry her, it's not going to be a happy marriage. So don't waste your time.
Even if she has to force the conversation, because I think even in this day and age, Lilith gave the example of older couples who are happily married, but even the younger couples I know who are happily married, when the woman was constantly bringing up marriage and almost like badgering the guy into marrying them, like those relationships are quite terrible. Whereas the high value relationships that I know, even amongst people in their 30s or early 30s, it's like the man always knew.
The man's more into her than she is into him.
Yeah, and they knew like pretty much instantly that they were going to get married. They may not, like a high value man wouldn't say that on like the second date, yeah, we're going to get married, but they know, and they'll be working towards that constantly in the background. Yeah,
so I want to say straight out the gates, if you're with a woman and she wants to get married and you're so about it, don't waste your time, honestly.
Agree. It's because I think it's just one of those things that like you're either feeling it or you're not. You can't convince somebody into wanting a marriage with them. It's almost like trying to convince people into finding you attractive. It never works. This is why I'm just better off to just walk away.
I think this goes for most of the relationship as well. His first question was, whose job is it to ask if the other person is ready for more? And he referenced things like holding hands or talking about being exclusive. And in general, we recommend that the man initiate these conversations, because when women tend to initiate these conversations, that means that they're way more invested than the man is, in which case they're more likely to be exploited by that man than not. Because if a man's not sure, it's not to say that, sunshine and rainbows should be falling out of your ass in his eyes, like maybe the first time you meet, but like he should still be making movement toward some kind of exclusivity. He should be making movement towards talking to you about like sexual contact and what's comfortable for you, because that shows a person who's thoughtful and concerned about how you feel about it, as well as a person who's invested in how you feel about it. If a woman pushes a man to this, it's easy for him to just lie about whatever he wants in order to get sex. Like the incentive for men to lie in order to get sex and physical contact is really high, more so than vice versa. Yeah, so here's the second part of his question. Also, the discussions in the FDS sphere don't seem to concern themselves much with specific milestones between want to go on a date and, quote, sex. Y'all talk about not rushing to sex, but I don't see a ton about the healthy path to getting closer, and especially not for the woman who will not want sex until marriage, which has been true for everyone whom that line has come up with me so far. Every woman you've been with wanted to wait till marriage? Interesting.
I mean, maybe he lives in a conservative part of the world or quite a religious part of the world. I don't know. Was part of a religious community. I don't know.
So is he asking us how to go from date to sex without marriage? Is that what he's asking us? Because we're not going to answer that question. That's not a question we're going to answer. Like, what is he asking for?
He's like, what is a healthy path from going on a date to getting to sex?
But that's going to vary between individual women. And even if we did know the blueprint answer, there is no way we would let Scrotes know that. Like, it's just like when women say, like, I'm not going to have sex until I'm in a relationship. You've sort of given the guy an exam and told him the answer, which is really silly. A woman will have sex with you, like, when she's ready to, and that is it.
So I think this is a religious thing because he says, especially makes emotional lines like, are we boyfriend and girlfriend and shall we be exclusive blurry when comparing to physical lines like, can I kiss you? One woman I dated didn't want to kiss until we were engaged and one wanted to wait to kiss until we were married, which was fine by me, but my experience seems atypical. Would like a strategy for feeling out how to fit between, I can't tell if this guy is excited about me and, whoa, this guy is moving too fast for most women. So it seemed like he's trying to figure out, like, how does he communicate that he finds a woman attractive and wants to have sex with her in a way that's not going to come on too strong or make her uncomfortable, but also, like, if he's not coming on strong enough that the woman thinks he doesn't have interest.
I mean, it's tough because it sounds to me like, again, he's living in a very conservative culture because at least where I'm from, which is like West Coast.
West Side for life.
The guys pretty much want to have sex on the first date, and like it's not that uncommon for women to go along with that.
West Canada, born and raised.
Yeah. You know, it's way more laid back when it comes to sex, right?
Straight out the Maple Forest.
Straight out the Maple Forest. Where was I?
Trying to teach this scrote how to ask for sex in a way that's not weird.
Yeah, like, I don't know how to answer that question. I don't even want to answer that question. I guess, like, the simple answer is, like, you should have a conversation with her and get to know, like, her boundaries and respect those boundaries. If a woman says that she doesn't want to kiss until she's engaged with you, then honestly, like, queen, good for her. I support that. Like, what do you want me to tell you? Like, how to negotiate her out of her boundaries? Because we're not going to answer that question. Like,
it seems like he's worried about, like, how to find where her boundaries are or, like, where the boundaries are for most women and what's typical. Your experience, sir, this guy's name is Weish, is atypical. Yeah, most women do not want to wait till marriage. And quite frankly, not to offend the religious folks, but I don't recommend you wait till marriage because then you're, yeah, you are buying a product you haven't tested that you have to have for the rest of your life.
Yeah. And that's what we're saying to women, by the way, right? Like, honestly, though, if a woman does want to wait till marriage to have sex, again, like, I'm not going to argue with her standards, but, like, I would advise women to, test the product in this case being men.
And like I said, because I was part of Christian culture, there's so many women who went that route and regret it. I mean, not that they regret necessarily not sleeping around, but because they had a lack of experience and insight, they didn't understand what it was going to take to maintain a sexual relationship and what it, like, their sexual boundaries and what was going to be healthy for them in their marriage. I mean, probably the most infamous cases like Jessica Simpson and Nick Lachey. Like, she was a virgin until they got married and they were divorced like less than 2 to 3 years later. And then she allegedly, like, went crazy after that because, like, once you understand, you know, who you are as a sexual being, it may be different from your partner, the partner that you married. So I think it's somewhat better to kind of start discovering that before you make a commitment. But okay, so to answer this guy's question, yes, your experience is very, very atypical. And so if you're dealing with women who are quite religious, then you definitely have to explicitly talk to them about, like, how your sexual boundaries are going to proceed and respect. I think at that point, you just have to ask them because it's not a typical thing, in which case they're going to communicate where their comfort level is. If they want to wait to kiss until you're engaged or wait to kiss or wait to have sex and you get married, then that's what it is. And then you just have to tell them very honestly, like, I'm attracted to you. I like you. Like, show your willingness to wait for them to feel comfortable with your proceeding with sex with whatever boundaries that they've set. So I think why it's awkward is because of the fact that the boundaries are about between, like, talking to someone and then getting to marriage are going to be really, really long. So then, like, if you start touching someone and you just want to hold their hand, like, you end up having to stop a lot and you have to do that for a long period of time before you're ready for marriage.
But I do also think, like, it is possible to be intimate without, like, sex. Because also sex doesn't necessarily, it should equal intimacy in my view of sex, but it isn't always an intimate thing as well. So you kind of have to think about the in-between stages and doing things together because intimacy isn't always physical. And I would argue, at least for me, the greatest amounts of intimacy that I've experienced have actually been like emotional and like mental as well. So just really getting to know them and doing things together, getting to know each other, just having a good time can also be a substitute for that intimacy that you're not obtaining through sexual activity, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you would still have to have these conversations even if you were having sex right away. So there's nothing necessarily awkward about this. The only thing that makes it awkward is like having to start and stop a lot because they have boundaries that are a little bit higher than most. But like other than this, like you just have the conversation, just ask them and be like, hey, like I like you. See if she flirts back, see if she acquiesces. I don't think we necessarily have a problem. I don't think any woman has a problem with a man who they've agreed to go on a date with and continue to see expressing their interest in a respectful manner. The creepy, like coming on too strong and pushy thing is when you start to like push her physical boundaries and she hasn't given you any indication that she's open to that or she's explicitly told you not to. So if you go in for a kiss after she's already said, oh, I don't want to kiss till I'm engaged, then yeah, then you're going to come across like a creep. Even if this was like a typical woman who, you know, wants to have sex, you know, within maybe the first couple of weeks or months of initiating a relationship, like you start with small types of touch, right? And then you start to see if that person reciprocates. Like this is where communication comes in and your ability to respect women's boundaries, both like physical, verbal and nonverbal. If you like go to hold her hand, she pushes and she like, you know, yanks it away, then that's probably an indication that she's not really interested in anything physical beyond that. That's kind of a low investment. That's not going to make her feel like you're attacking her.
Also, in terms of like giving compliments and stuff, like you can verbally communicate interest, even like interest in her physically without coming across like creepy, or like you can compliment someone's appearance in a way that's not like sexually objectifying, right? You can say, oh, your eyes are so beautiful. Oh, you look great today. Oh, this outfit looks fantastic on you, or something like, oh, your hair looks great, whatever, right? Like those are compliments that when women give me compliments like that, for example, I'm like usually like positive about it. And sometimes when men give me compliments like that, as long as it's not in like a leering kind of creepy way, then I don't have a problem with that either, right? Like you can, you know, if you were to say like, oh, I love your tits or something, send nudes, then she's probably going to have a problem with that, right? So you can compliment someone physically in a respectful way. And that's a good way of communicating that you're interested.
Yes. So to answer your question, verbal communication, just talk to her, ask her. That would happen if you had sex or not. And then nonverbal communication, small acts of getting close, like just grab, you know, if you want to hold her hand, etc., and then respect her boundaries if she sets them physically. All right. Next up on the docket is a Scrote Strike Back question from Infamous Cheater. Didn't ask about the name.
Infamous Cheater. Okay. Right out the gates. Great start.
Great start. Just really priming us to be sympathetic to you and answer your question honestly. So, hello, Rouexk, Lilith and Savannah. Nice try. I have enjoyed your podcast. I find it entertaining and it's very refreshing to hear women talk so candidly and brutally honest the way you do. I have a few questions, but find myself too busy to ask, but this one popped into my head today and I wanted to send it out ASAP as it's important to me.
What was the date that he sent this out?
The date, this was set like July 28th-ish. Somewhere around that time is when I copied it over. Somewhere around the end of July. So a month ago.
Okay, so we're only getting to it 2 months late now. It's currently, date of this recording is August 28th. Okay. Oh wait, no, July. It was, okay, so 1 month actually. I thought you said June, yeah. So only 1 month delay. That's actually not so bad.
Yeah, you're welcome, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're welcome.
You're welcome for getting back to you in a timely manner. Yeah.
So I have a daughter that's about to be 12, and like any low-value male, I was cruising Reddit. At least you know, at least you're self-aware, all right? So I'm kind of, all right.
Self-aware wolves.
I'm middling right now. Infamous cheater to low-value male who cruises Reddit. When I stumbled upon an Ask Women thread, I'm assuming he went to our Ask Women. When I stumbled onto an Ask Women thread about how they deal with hitting adulthood and being sexualized. All the comments, however, were anecdotes about being sexualized long before adulthood, and some even before they were even 10. So fucking gross! ! This raised my concerns for what is possibly already happening to her. She is a very small, thin girl. She's at that age where she will be left on her own more and more. And I live in a city where a decade ago, a mass murderer of women was convicted and sentenced, and occasionally a young woman still goes missing. So to finalize my questions, what do you wish you knew at this age? What else can I do to protect her? What's the best way to broach the subject? And would asking of this be better coming from a woman?
What was the question in the Ask Woman thread?
The Ask Women thread was, how do women deal with hitting adulthood and being sexualized? And the comments underneath that thread were saying, haha.
Like, you think we get sexualized when we hit adulthood? That happens way before then. Okay.
Exactly. So he was surprised to read that. And he says he has a daughter that's about 12. And he wants to know, what do we wish we knew at that age? What else can he do to protect her? What's the best way to broach the subject? And would this subject be better broached coming from a woman than him?
Okay, this is like 4 questions in one. I sense boundary busting here, but continue.
Well, he says, just a quick note, my wife has no stories like these and says many of them are fake. That's why I ask you ladies. I'm like, yeah, no, I don't know why your wife doesn't have these stories, but the rest of us do, or a large portion of us do.
I'm kind of shocked he was surprised to hear the experiences of women. Like, do you not go outside?
I think he was surprised at how young it was.
But why are they surprised? Like, why are they surprised that men ogle like young women and girls? Like, again, step outside.
It happens all the time. But also there's literally been studies where they asked women, what was the age that you first started getting like sexual attention from men? And like the graph like peaked around like 11 or 12, right? There were girls, getting hit on as young as 9, right? So that was my experience too. Yeah, I was getting sexually harassed when I was like 9, 10, 11, 12 years old.
Same. And I was super unfortunate as well because I physically developed really early. So I went like through puberty from like 8 onwards. So it was pretty horrendous.
What do we wish we knew when we were 10, 11, and 12? I'm guessing he might not know because I'm sure that when he's out with his daughter, the predators hide. So it might not be something that, I'm like, when I think of all the times I was harassed, it's because that's around the age where girls start to be more independent. So like going to the mall or the park with your friends by yourself, or to school, etc. So then because you're starting to venture out in the world without your parents, that's when predators are on high alert and, try to snatch you up.
I'm trying to think, what do I wish I would have known at the time? I'll be honest, like, I actually don't think it's a good thing to teach girls about the depths of male depravity too young, because that can be really traumatizing. And I would want young girls to have as much time where like the mental weight of being aware of misogyny and aware of male sexual predators and stuff, I'd want young girls to have as much time to live their lives like feeling safe and free and not mentally weighed down by that knowledge. You know what I mean? Like, as I feel like kids very young, they don't have the resilience and like maturity and like coping mechanisms and so on that adults do. So I'd actually want to like, you want to give her opportunities to be independent, but also, don't like do too much like stranger danger fear mongerings. My mom did these really fucked up things where she would like take articles out of the newspaper about like rapists or like robbers and stuff and would like, in our neighborhood or whatever. So my dad had this thing where he would kept forgetting to lock the door. And so the way that my mom would like try to scare my dad into, remembering to lock the door by taking newspaper articles of like, there's like a serial killer in our neighborhood, there's a cat burglar, rapist, whatever, pedophile, kidnapper, whatever, right, in our neighborhood. But me and my sister would see this stuff and we're like 8, 9, 10, 11 years old. And that scared the shit out of us to like learn about these things at such a young age. And yes, it did scare my dad into locking the door at night, but at what cost, right? At the cost of our innocence. I wish he didn't do that.
See, I somewhat disagree. I think there are ways to make children aware of the facts of life, so to speak, without traumatizing them. And it's important that we do that because if you don't, tell your kids the truth, they will get the information from the media, from their friends, from pornography, basically, sources that don't have their best.
Or from the pedophiles themselves, for that matter.
Or from the pedos themselves, exactly. And we also need to not underestimate the mental capacity of children. Like, children know what's up. This is why, children bully, for example. They know that bullying behavior is shitty. That's why they do it to certain children and not to others, right? They have that awareness that this behavior is going to make someone feel shit. That's why I'll do it to somebody who's not going to fight back, for example. It's also why in the child practitioners who work within, child sexual abuse, there's a campaign going on about referring to parts of the female body as they are. So instead of, calling your, vagina my flower, just teaching children that it's a vagina. So if a child is being touched inappropriately, they'll know that because they're being touched on their vagina, which is inappropriate, for example. So I think there is a way to spread the message to children without traumatizing them, but we have to tell them early on because unfortunately, even, young children, especially if we look at, what they're being exposed to in the media, they're also not immune to things like racism, to homophobia, and to misogyny as well. Like the number of my colleagues and my friends who have children who say like their 8-year-old is being, racially abused, or they've been attacked for their sexuality, or the fact they've come out as gay at like 8, and by other children is horrendous. So children know what these things are. They know what discrimination is. So there's no reason why, especially young girls, they can't know about the true nature of men in a way that doesn't traumatize them, obviously. So obviously, like, I don't agree with like showing children, videos of other children being raped, which was actually the norm up until a few years ago in the UK, where in training for these sorts of things, children would be shown traumatizing material. That's inappropriate. But we can tell children about that in a child-friendly way whilst making them aware, and also in a way that keeps them safe as well. But it's important to be aware, I think.
I'm going to agree with Savannah because, especially depending on the environment, you absolutely have to tell them about the reality of men as soon as they have the capacity to understand it in bits and pieces to not confuse them. But especially if you're like a latchkey kid or something like that, like you got to know about stranger danger. So for me, the way it was talked to me is like my parents are very candid. Like there's these things called pedophiles. They're older men. They want to have sex with children. They're going to try to touch you. They try to do inappropriate things. Now, the toxic part of the conversation is that they attributed some of that to me and the way I was dressed, et cetera, et cetera. And that's the part where I think you have to cut all of that old programming that used to be standard with girls about teaching them like to internalize the shame of men's predatory behavior. So what I wish I knew at that age is that like the way that men talk to you is not your fault, because like, just had to like pull back some tears there. But like what's really painful is like when that's happening to you and like your parents, they shamed you so much for your physical appearance, and like the reaction to that, like you don't feel comfortable talking to them when it's happening to you, like when predatory men are around you, and you have to tell them in a way that externalizes it. Teach your daughters to be disrespectful as fuck to men they don't know.
Yeah. Yes.
Seriously, like the saving grace for me is that I had a shitty relationship with my father, so I got very comfortable with disrespecting adult men, right?
Yes. Yes.
And I feel like compared to some of my other friends who were a lot more naive because they could, maybe because they had their fathers in their lives, ironically.
Their dads weren't like a complete and total fuck up, so they just assume most men aren't complete and total fuck up.
Yeah, to be fair, that's what happened to me. Like, my dad spoilt me in that regard. Like, I thought all men thought the same as he did, that they were equitable, that they gave a shit about their kids and their wife.
See, I think kids should be aware of like both types of adults, right? Like, I think kids should have like positive male role models in their life that are like, for me, my grandfather, my dad's dad was like, I've talked about him before, is like what I consider like high value man, really respectful to women, talked about like, knowledgeable in a lot of areas, loved, teaching me about like nature and having, encouraging education in myself and my sister and so on, right? So it's good to have good men like that as like a positive influence of like, that's the standard of what you can expect a good man to be like. I hate to say it, but like having fuck up adult men in your life to like point at and like disrespect, that's an example of a bad man and the sort of man that we should, shame and ignore and avoid, right?
I mean, for me personally, I'm going to start on my niece as soon as possible. Like, she's going to know what a scrote is the minute she can start talking. Because then if she can verbalize it, then that's better for her. So I'm just going to I'm going to start on her as soon as she's like able to communicate. Because ultimately, if we try to, I guess, to sugarcoat the reality, what is end up going to happen is that these women will find out eventually, and it will usually be a very long and very painful lesson, especially when they are older. And those behavior patterns are a lot more difficult to break. So children there, because I'm currently doing an MA in psychology, and there's a lot of talk around the personality and when it's set and how it's formed. And even though, psychologists, they can't agree on when the end personality is formed because it changes throughout the lifetime so much, but they emphasize the importance of the development years and how patterns are set and like how behavioral patterns are set as well. I mean, I was speaking to one of my lecturers who, she had a difficult child, and she was saying that she read a research study. I'll have to ask her where it's from and see if I could drop it in the show notes, that said that if, something like misogyny is not, I guess, like taken out of a young boy by the time he's 13, he'll have those belief patterns for the rest of his life. So if you think about it, from the time a child starts becoming more independent around the age of 8 to 13, that's a window of 5 years. It's not very long. And so if we do the flip side, I guess like for young girls, And if we don't teach them about misogyny by the time they are 13, is according to the research, it's, likely that they will at least carry some disordered form of thinking around misogyny and their place in the world into the rest of their late teens and early adulthood. And by that point, it's very, very difficult to unlearn those behavioral patterns. This is why you see pick-me's who go out sad as well, who just never learn their lesson.
I do think that women have a greater window of learning than boys. I feel like, boys, if they haven't learned how to act right by the time they're 13, it's...
Game over! Game over!
I don't want to say game over, but it's much, much, much more difficult. And change has to come from within. Like, after a certain age, it's like they have to be the ones to take the initiative to change. It's not externally, it's much more difficult to make them change, right? I find women, we've gotten up until, I think, 25 or so. Like, there are some women who've gone, late teens, early 20s being pick-me's and stuff. And then around the age of 23, 24, 25, something happens in the brain and you suddenly learn from all of your terrible experiences with men and you're like, fuck men, And so I think women have a greater window of opportunity to learn male depravity. But I guess I agree with both of your perspectives. I think what my concern is, I would want girls to be taught a sort of mental resiliency before learning the full extent of male depravity. So there are other ways that you can instruct girls in the way of mental resiliency. Number one being sports. Obviously, I've talked about that before. Teaching girls to really love their bodies in a way for what they can do and not for how they look and stuff. And also, learning teamwork and, just building their confidence and stuff, right? And just really appreciating their bodies for what they can do and for the strength that they have. That's one. And the other one is teaching girls that it's okay to disrespect shitty men from a young age. That's a great idea, bro. We should actually normalize that completely.
I'm dead serious. And that's why it's so important for as her father to never be the person that's overly disciplinarian with her, because you cannot teach your daughter that a man can put his hands on her, but also that he has a right to control her. And that's the tough thing as a father, because I see a lot of these super conservative dads that are I'm going to sit on my porch with a shotgun and be the patriarch and scare away all the wolves, so to speak, or the predatory men. But that is the exact wrong way to do it. Because first of all, you'd have to teach your daughter how to recognize it for herself, because you won't be around her 24/7. And quite frankly, you have to instill her with a certain level of independence in the way that she deals with men and has confidence in setting her boundaries and getting away from predatory men when you're not there. And that comes with teaching her to be comfortable disrespecting the fuck out of adult men all of the time. Every single girl from the time she's a toddler or can speak should be learning how to curse at and throw rocks at and disrespect men. It should just be deeply ingrained and reflexive almost. Teach girls audacity.
Teach girls audacity, right? That's the thing. Girls don't have enough audacity. Male audacity is celebrated from a young age, and girls are taught oh, that's unladylike. Oh, they're constantly punished for having audacity. Young girl audacity should be celebrated, honestly.
Yeah, all the girls that I know that had trouble, that had boyfriends that were way older or were more susceptible to be preyed upon, because the type of girls that would have gone off with a guy because he gave a good story. And I've had, unfortunately, very naive friends that way. Not something as simple as oh, come look at the candy in the back of my truck or something like that. But things that were clearly a guy that was trying to hit on us and take us to a second location. The thing that happens is for whatever reason in their household, either because their father or somebody in their family was a boundary pushing creep, or because he never taught them that they had the right to say no or stand up for themselves, they didn't know how to do that with men outside of the home either. So you have to teach your daughter self-efficacy and teach her that she doesn't have to respect anyone's opinions but her own, especially not boys or men.
If she gets in trouble at school for say a guy's harassing her. This happened actually to me all the time as a kid. For all my parents' flaws, one thing they really, really did right is that I got in trouble at school often. I had conflicts with boys from a very young age.
No, really? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, this has been going on since I was really young. Yeah, so one of the things my parents did right is that when I got in trouble at school and a boy was harassing me or whatever, and I punched him in the face or because I was, up until around the age 12, I was bigger than all of the other boys in my class. I grew really fast and then just stopped at the age of 12. But up until then, yeah, I was just physically larger than them. So I could if guys were bothering me, yeah, I'd physically put them in their place. And sometimes I got in trouble at school. My parents would always pick me home, at lunch or whatever happened. And instead of admonishing me, they'd be good job, Lilith. Good on you for defending yourself. They'd be proud of me. So that's another thing. Is like when your daughter defends herself, don't discourage that. Like encourage that. Be proud of her. Even if they kind of did it for fucked up reasons, I still think that was a good call.
Exactly. So the next question he had was, what's the best way to broach the subject? And would it be better coming from a woman? Find a really stupid looking dude and just get your daughter real comfortable with disrespecting them. I'm not kidding. That's fine.
Yeah, like who is the fat male like family fuck up? Like every family's got one, like, you know, some creepy uncle. Like every family has one guy that's like the fuck up that everyone else just dunks on. Like include her on that, honestly.
Because he's probably going to go in on her anyways. Like the last ditch effort of completely useless men who have lost all respect of the people around them is to try to dominate and bully the young girls in the family. So you got to get her like reflexively knowing how to stand up for that stuff. And let's face it, those are the type of guys that are often the pedophiles and creeps hanging out like outside the mall and shit. You already know, you already probably have a fuck up cousin or fuck up uncle or fuck up brother. And that's the exact type of person hanging out at the mall after school, trying to get like teenage girls to talk to him and stuff. So if you have some character like that, be frank about what he's like. Encourage your daughter's ability to speak on men when they're fucking up.
And be disgusted with them.
Yes. And also just talk about stranger danger, right? Whenever they start to go out, wanting to go out with their friends, et cetera, and wanting to assert independence, like have the stranger danger talk. You should start having that from the time they're small children, but like, especially at the time when they're starting to go out without you, then have the stranger danger talk.
And also, in addition to the stranger danger talk as well, you need to also talk about the inappropriate attention that they can get from people that you know, so your friends and family as well. That's even more uncomfortable because a lot of parents like to think that every child is abused by a stranger outside the home, when actually, statistically speaking, your child is a lot more likely to be subjected to abuse inside the home, so by somebody that they know, than by a stranger on the street as well. So you need to also have that conversation and make sure that they feel comfortable coming to you to talk about it if they do have something inappropriate to report. Because from my experience working in the field, many children even, they don't feel comfortable saying that, daddy's friend is being inappropriate with me, because they're worried about what their dad will think if they were to report that incident, or whether they will be blamed or not believed as well. And so have a frank discussion around, I guess, the strangers and the weirdos inside the home as well. So your family, your friends, extended family, because they are more likely to be predatory towards your daughter than people outside the home as well.
Exactly. And I don't think this matters if it's coming from a man or a woman. If anything, it's better coming from a man, because you can probably teach her how to disrespect men in ways we can't think of, right? Because you are a man. So be creative. Maybe do a vision board of all the ways you can disrespect a man. Just like start to
a vision board.
Do a vision board and like a cloud map of the best ways to tell men to fuck off.
If he does this, then do this. If that happens, then this.
Exactly. So all of the, draw out like a caricature of a man, almost like a hangman, and then circle all the weak spots, like maybe circle his scalp and say you can insult his scalp. Show like where
point in his neck, be like, it only takes 6 seconds of pressure there to cut off blood flow to the brain. Just saying. Put her in martial arts, put her in like self-defense courses, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, something like that. Teach her to defend herself.
Teach her to think on her feet, which martial arts can do, but also like a good game of the dozens can also do. Situational awareness and being able to think on your feet and react in real time. A lot of women and girls in those situations, they go into freeze mode. And so there has to be some kind of teaching her to react in a way that's going to protect herself, either flight or fight. Those are actually the preferable things, because a lot of times the predators rely on women going into freeze mode to attack them. So get her real comfortable insulting and disrespecting. Thus saith FDS.
Yeah. Thus saith the Lord, aka Ro.
Yeah.
And here endeth the lesson.
Okay, so another Scrotes strike back question from M. Day. Greetings, FDS. I've been listening to your podcast and I've been enjoying it quite a bit. I particularly like the talks about how pornography is problematic. For that reason, your guest, Dr. Gail Dines, was a great addition to the show. I never liked pornography because so much of it is violent. We love Gail Dines too. So even the regular scenes involving a guy jackhammering a girl in the rear end and the loud moaning is so disturbing to me. I'm a romantic at heart. I want to cuddle and kiss and full embrace when I meet a woman to get close with. When I date, however, I conceal any sexual interest I have in the woman. I don't get flirty on the first date. I don't touch her arm, and I never kissed on a first date. I do this to avoid coming off as a creep and advancing too quickly. I put my best foot forward by being friendly first and seeing if we have any good conversation. Is this the right strategy I should employ, or does the lack of flirting and touch ruin the woman's interest in me as a dating prospect? It's very similar to the first question we had. Seems like a lot of men are unsure how to proceed because of wanting to show interest but not creep a girl out.
Yeah. I will say that a lot of the guys that I've been physical with, like, we had, a sort of sexual chemistry long before any physical touching took place. And that can be kind of hard to gauge, I guess, especially for the kind of guy that's like, any woman who smiles at me, I'm in love with her kind of thing,
He continues here and says, if the latter is true, meaning does the lack of flirting and make a woman seem that I'm not interested and ruin me as a dating prospect? If the latter is true. Does pick-me culture have any influence on women judging men as dating prospects based on how sexually evocative they are on the first couple of dates? Lastly, if I didn't feel any initial connection on the first date, should I still try and arrange a second date if there are no red flags and the woman didn't seem repulsed by me? So once again, guys are always trying to fit in a lot of questions here. But so he's basically just asking, okay, how do I initiate physical contact with a woman so she knows I'm interested but doesn't creep her out? Do men who are more forward sexually on the first couple of dates, are they more successful? Is it pick-me culture that makes women more susceptible to guys doing that? And then lastly, should I arrange a second date if there weren't any red flags and the woman didn't seem repulsed? So to answer your last question, before we get into the meat of the other one, if you didn't feel the initial connection on the first date, I would still go for a second date if there's no red flags and she didn't say she was repulsed by you. Because the worst thing she could do is say no, and then you'll know or ghost you. So I think if you still like her and you still want to pursue it and she hasn't rejected you, then I think it's fine to ask again.
Again, I sort of feel like though, if somebody's into you or not.
I assume men are very stupid. Just assume he's very clueless.
I feel like women know when a man is interested in her, but men are very bad at telling if a woman is into them. Because again, the men, they're interested. In fact, wasn't there also a study on this also where men think that attractive women are more into them? They're attracted to the attractive women and they just assume that the attractive woman feels that way about him. They project their own attraction onto other women.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. They have no clue how to gauge women's interest. So I think why we keep getting this question is because they really don't get it.
Yeah, and they tend to confuse the sort of normal sort of politeness that women have to strangers or, just regular friendliness. They tend to confuse that with sexual interest. I would say that a woman smiling at you and being friendly is very different. When a woman is into you, it's I don't know, at least I feel like I make it obvious. I'm looking at him more. I'm making an effort to be in his line of sight more. I don't know, giving him a bit of attitude maybe in a flirty kind of way,
You're an extrovert too. So I feel with us who are extroverts, so depends on the woman. For those of us who are more extroverted, we're more likely to flirt back with you in ways that are more obvious. But there's a lot of women for whom that's not true. They're way more subtle. And I think that's why some guys are kind of confused about whether or not the date's going well and whether or not the woman's interested.
Yeah, that's me, to be fair.
I mean, I'm like that if I don't know. I'll hedge my bets if I'm not sure about the guy. If I'm into him, then I'm a little bit more assertive about it. But if I'm not, then I'm kind of non-committal about his flirtations. And like we told the last guy, I think you try to flirt. There's so many ways you can flirt with a woman or try to talk to a woman that's not sexually objectifying, where all the red pill guys fuck up and all these guys that try to do all the negging and evocative things is they start in on something that makes a woman feel on the defensive rather than you're getting to know her.
I mean, what I really like as well, and what works with introverts, I speak for myself as a semi-introvert in recovery, is also the face is highly expressive as well. So some guys have flirted with me just by giving me a cheeky smile or a certain look. And that also works as well as a signal. So yeah, use the face too.
I don't think there's anything wrong with letting a woman know that you're finding her interesting. I do think you should flirt if you are interested in her. I think you're taking the idea that you don't want to creep a woman out, that you shouldn't ever express any sexual interest. But the issue is the way that men express sexual interest typically turns women off because it's predatory and it's porn sick. So you're already doing pretty good because you understand why porn is a problem. So now you're trying to figure out how to flirt with girls without it being like, not in a way that makes her feel gross and objectified, which comes down to you looking at that specific person. This is why lines don't work, or when like these guys try to give you, like lines to feed women, because when you flirt with someone, it's specific to them, and a person doesn't want to feel like you're saying something to get in their pants or try to a specific formula of things to say. It means you have to actually understand that person, notice that person, and then compliment them on something genuine that you like about them. So just think about when you're on a date with a woman, what do you like about her? And don't say her boobs and don't say anything related to her body that makes her feel objectified, but talk about something about her personality, talk about the way she makes you feel, talk about something other than just like the physical sexual attraction. And that is also flirting. Like flirting isn't just like, oh, I want to bang you from behind or whatever type of dumb pornographic dialogue. Flirting is also telling a girl,
what's your favorite sex position? That's not flirting.
Yeah, exactly. That's what guys think. And that's why they're always messing. But like just saying a girl like, hey, I really feel like whenever I'm around you, I feel like I'm laughing a little harder, like, or something like that. Like you make me laugh a little bit harder. This is, something that makes her feel like you're engaging on her and you're flirting with her. You're having an experience together and it's not pornographic. Just notice what you like about her. Okay, so then the second question, does pick-me culture have any influence on women judging men as dating prospect based on how sexually evocative they are in the first couple of dates? I think he's asking, like, do women judge men as better dates if they're more sexually forward on the first couple of dates? I don't know. I don't know if it just comes down to, like, a man, like, having some kind of confidence. I mean, a lot of times these guys who are successful, like, they just hit on everything and then they wear down women's defensive, but I don't really necessarily think that that's like a good thing. Yeah, so that's the answer to your question.
That's it. That's all you get.
That's all you get.
Thanks for your money. Bye.
All right, so thanks, Scrotes. Go forth and be better in the world.
Yeah. Don't be shitty. Stop being shitty.
Don't be shitty.
Actually, you know what? The guys who send us a question, at least they're listening to our podcast. At least they're,
they're trying.
Giving us money. They're trying. This is a step in the right direction. So I'm willing to give them a cookie for that. Good boy.
All right. So that's our show. Check us out on our website at thefemaledatingstrategy.com. Discuss this episode in the forum. Also follow us on Twitter at fem.strat and on our Instagram at _thefemaledatingstrategy.com. And if you want to submit your own roast to scrote or scrote strike back or queen shit story to be read aloud on the podcast like we did on this episode, go to our Patreon, patreon.com/thefemaledatingstrategy. Thanks for listening, queens. And for all you scrotes out there, sign up for our Patreon so you can level up your dating life.
And get your questions half answered.
Get your questions half-ass answered.
Great sales pitch.
Based on how we're feeling that day.
Yeah. If we decide to come around to it.
If we decide to grace you.
With our attention.
With our attention that day. So sign up, patreon.com/thefemaledatingstrategy. See y'all next week.